Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight it seems, as always, for Champions League night, I am joined by Kevin McCluskey, our man in Budapest. How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing well, Paul. Thank you very much. I seem to drag myself out from under the woodwork for these big games, but someone's got to do it, right?
Right, but another person who used to drag themselves at the woodwork for the big games was the same player that jersey reminds me of, and your beard, I've got to say, Georges Samaras. He was a big game player. Are you going to be a big
So
game player for us tonight, Kev?
I would like to hope so. That was a perfect and unscripted segue into mentioning Giorgio Samaras within 1 minute of a show. That's a
Yeah.
record.
Listen, I'll
But
mention the big man as
listen,
much as possible.
oh, definitely. We could probably be doing with him up there tonight because he was the man for the big occasion, like you're saying. And playing Madrid in the Bernabeu, it doesn't get much bigger than this. Even if it's a kind of dead rubber sort of a game, it's a massive dead rubber game because it's Madrid in the Bernabeu. So, you know,
Yeah, I'm looking at this
let's hope one of
game.
us can be the big man player,
Absolutely.
big
I
match
mean,
player,
listen,
even.
we've not got a great record, you and I, as a duo on Acsom when it comes to match day, right? But I was looking at this kind of dead rubber title, and I'm thinking to myself, how does Ange approach this, right? So we know every single pre-match he gets asked about motivation, etc., for domestic after the big games in Europe, etc. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, right, if he's looking at certain players who may not have performed the way that we know they can, that's going to be one thing that they'll be looking at, right? So let's get the monkey off your back. So if you're looking at Kyogo, for example, Kevin, you're looking for a big performance this evening, maybe a Bada. You're maybe looking at Maeda to go back to that moment at Celtic Park that could have, completely changed the whole campaign and rid himself of that as well. So I just think small victories like that are going to be huge. He'll be looking at things like Starfelt coming back into the side. Unusually, he's going to have an opportunity to play on his favoured side of the central defensive partnership. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is the first time Jens and Starfelt have played together. Would that be right?
I was thinking that as well. Did they maybe play Ross County away
Potentially.
near the
Potentially.
start of the season? But
Is that when the big fella
if it's
scored?
not the
Yeah, he
first
scored.
game, that's right. Jens scored and Jackie Mackett scored these nutmegged overhead kick
Yeah.
in the last minute. But I think that's probably the only other time that those two have played together. So bit of a change of scenery from Dingwall to Madrid.
Oh, aye, definitely. I mean, it's been one of those weeks where I've said this a few times. There's plenty of the Acsom team over there in the Bernabeu for tonight's game. There's plenty more who don't have tickets, but will certainly be there or thereabouts. And some of the figures we've been looking at over the last few days in terms of the amount, the volume of Celtic supporters who have gone out there. Obviously, there's going to be very many of them disappointed. But already I've seen that Declan McConville, surprise, surprise, Declan has made it into the stadium, Kevin. You
That's
surprised at that?
absolutely no surprise. Not at all. No, that's not a newsworthy story, Paul. It's the newsworthy story is if Declan doesn't get a ticket for a game. He's
True.
there everywhere.
Yeah,
Aye.
I know.
I did see as well that Colin managed to get himself into the B team game as well beforehand. I think so. Every game there's an Axon presence.
Acts on presence, and JP will also be at the game. I was talking to JP Mason earlier on this afternoon, and he secured a ticket. So I hope all the guys and girls enjoy it in the stadium. We're going to be looking through the team in a wee bit more detail. Paddy Burns, good evening, Paul and Kevin. What do we think the score will be? Right, okay, straight off the bat, Paddy, let's get in with the predictions. By the way, Laura will be joining us at some point during tonight's coverage, probably at half time and full time. Kevin McCluskey, what is your prediction for tonight? Paddy came in early with that one.
Aye, cheers, Paddy, for bringing that one up nice and early. Let's get this one out the way. Um, I don't know. This is one of those ones where you let the heart rule the head or the head rule the heart. Uh, it's Real Madrid in the Bernabeu. We've got absolutely no right to go there and win this game. Uh, but you've got to go with some hope, haven't you? It's the typical game. If we could get the first goal, then you just never know what could happen. Madrid will be favourites for it. I'll probably say it's going to be 2-1 either way, as a pre-match, and I'm not going to nail anything to any mast at the moment to say who's winning it.
Okay, that's fair enough. So you reckon there will be a few goals in it? Sneds 1967 has low
I think there will be
expectations,
goals, yes.
but we will see, hopefully, maybe put the chances away in Europe for a change. That's what it's come down to. We know all the stats: 68 opportunities, 3 goals. If we change that this evening, then it'll be too little too late. But it is about pride, and as I say, it's about all these small victories that Ange will be looking at in relation to the team, the individuals, and how we can maybe even look at next year. I had a chat this morning in relation to this game, Kevin, and the question that was asked was around the patience shown. I guess this is maybe from the outside looking in, the patience shown by Celtic fans in relation to Celtic in Europe this season, and in particular towards Ange Postecoglou. So I was having a think about that, and I thought to myself, would we have had the same patience with Neil Lennon or Brendan Rodgers? I think we did with Brendan Rodgers, didn't we? I think, after a couple of campaigns, things weren't improving, but because we were so good at home, there was a fair bit of patience with Brendan Rodgers. Neil Lennon, when you look at his second spell at the club, our European performances were mixed. There were a few memorable ones, but it's about progression. And I think that what you can see with Ange and what he says after the games makes sense in respect of where this team is, where it can go. And he's got the buy-in of his fans. This is a big thing. There's a relationship there. He's got the buy-in. Is that unfair on previous managers, or is it really down to the strength of Ange and that relationship that he's built with us, Celtic fans?
I think the patience that we've shown to Ange or to this team this season is something that's completely deserved, and he's earned that. If you go back to somebody like Neil Lennon, especially even in his first spell at the club, Lennon came in as a club legend at that point. He'd previously been the captain. He's a dyed in the wool Celtic man. He's going to get a little bit of time, I think, because of everything that he was coming into that first spell in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're moving on to someone like Rodgers that you mentioned. He's the big name. He's talking the big talk that he's going to be at the club for the long term. He's winning everything domestically. That, of course, buys you that bit of time because you're buying into a long-term vision that you think he's trying to sell you. Mm-hmm. And instead he's selling you down the river and he leaves after 2.5 seasons. So Ange's kind of come in with none of that background in a sense. And he's had to earn everything that he's got. And he's came in at, an immensely difficult time in the club's history because you've just lost 10 in a row. You've had that whole squad that was built up completely decimated by players that have been sold. Those that are still there are low in confidence. We've spoken about this almost every week. We were going to the game against Midtjylland with Dane Murray, 16 or 17 years of age, as your number one centre-back. Now, that's just something that should never have been the case. But slowly but surely, his results have improved pretty much game by game, to the point where you now definitely do see improvements. And you do think Ange seems to be a different character to Brendan. He's not going to leave us at any time soon. So there is a long-term plan and project in place here. You just can't help but think, if he gets the players he wants in January, if he gets the players he wants in the summer, we come back a much stronger side than this one. So I think that's where he does get the patience from, because you can see that there's the improvements coming. And then next season, I think expectation will be higher and possibly patience will be lower. But that's what Ange wants, because that'll be the test of his ability to get more out of what he's got.
I think that's fair to suggest that, and also think that when you look at Ange's time at Celtic, Kevin, and you look at the progression even in the transfer windows. So, for example, he comes in, he's firefighting, he's putting out fires, he's firefighting, and he just needs to bring a team together, knowing that some big players are going to leave, and he's trying to fix it before he can build it, if you know what I mean. And then in January, when he brings in 3 Japanese imports and Matt O'Reilly, he gives us enough to take us to the league title at that stage. We were good enough to win a cup first half of the season. Second half of the season, we had that squad, so he starts to build the squad a bit. The team, I think the team, first 2 transfer windows was about building the starting lineup, and the third transfer window just there was about the squad. So he starts building the squad a bit more. So he brings in Bernabe, brings in Siegrist, we've got Jens coming in there as well. And I'm not saying they're squad players as such, but the squad is much stronger now, and there's more depth. You move into January, and it's at that point that it's going to be interesting again, because at that stage we don't have European football to look at. The consideration of keeping all your top players is always going to be there. There's going to be other teams interested in some of our top talents, and we'll talk about some of that. But I think window on window we have improved, and that is a big part of it. You know, with previous managers, even in Brendan Rodgers' second season, you're looking at some of the transfer windows and thinking, did we strengthen? Did we come out of that transfer window stronger? You know, we won the Invincible treble. Have a look at the transfers we made the following season. Did we really strengthen it in terms of European? I don't think so. But every time Ange has gone into the transfer market, we have strengthened the team first and foremost, and then the squad. And I think that this January transfer already is looking like we're doing that. We're already looking to strengthen at the back, and I'm guessing that there'll be a few other additions as well. Kevin, we're going to run through the team. There's a comment coming in that we are going to speak about. Came in from Magnet, but once we get to Kyogo, we can discuss this. Ridiculizer, nothing to lose. Let's go and express ourselves. There is a bit of that as well, and I think that with some of the players who there's been this talk about anxiety. As well, Kevin, tonight shouldn't be about that. Yeah, you're playing at the Bernabeu. The majority of the fans in the stadium are going to be home fans, but we can't get through. We can't do any of that kind of stuff. Therefore, there is an element that will allow you to express yourself. Is that going to work in to the advantage of a player like Abada, perhaps, who hasn't been at his best in this tournament, or Kyogo?
Right. So this is strangely probably the second best opportunity you've got going to the Bernabeu to get a result in these kind of games. The best one is if you're already through. We're out. Either way, you have nothing to play for in a sense. And we don't have anything to play for. We don't have anything to lose in this game. So I think it can take a bit of weight off the shoulders of the players. Obviously, you know, as you say, you're going into this fairly intimidating atmosphere. There's going to be a big crowd there, but we're used to playing in front of big crowds. We're used to going to Ibrox and playing a hostile away game. So in a sense, it shouldn't be that new to some of the players. And I don't think the Bernabeu will be sold out tonight. So there's always that as well. But yeah, this is exactly the type of game where you can put a feather in your cap in a sense and say, look back at the history books in a few years' time and go, I scored the goal at the Bernabeu. I was in a Celtic team that won a game against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu. Doesn't matter if it was a dead rubber game. No game at Celtic is technically a dead rubber game. There's always something to play for. There's personal battles. There's wrongs to be put right from a previous game. There's a place in the side to be won for the next match. So, yeah, if you want, this is a game to go there, as you say, zero pressure, maybe not zero pressure, but, you know, limited pressure on you. Go out, try and express yourself and play your game. And we know that they're going to try and do that anyway. You know, Ange isn't going to sit back, regardless of who we're playing. So they will go out, and I think they will have a bit of freedom to play the regular game, and you've just got to hope then that it does pay off and that someone like Abada gets in, gets his chance and takes it this time.
Absolutely. And I think it makes a massive difference. If we are able to look ahead to next season's campaign, obviously we need to qualify for the tournament. I get that. I'm not counting my chickens, Kevin, but I think we're well placed for that. And if you want to look at this campaign, these 6 games as being part of that learning process to galvanise the individuals and the team and move on to next season where those stresses and anxieties that have been mentioned by Ange and Matt O'Reilly are diminished. And I think that in order to do that, we're looking for big performances from a couple of these guys tonight. There's a few good points to talk about before we actually get into the starting 11. So I'm going to bring up Magnet 67's point. You are watching us, Magnet, with a very impressive catch on your avatar. You're watching us on YouTube. If anyone out there is watching us on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed, then click the subscribe button. You get daily content from Acsom and A State of Mind. And we're almost at 19.8. I think we've only got 8 or 9 to go before we hit 19.8 thousand subscribers this evening. And it would be nice to do that during the Real Madrid game. If you want to support the channel in other ways, you can buy some merchandise for Christmas, like that Shamrock top behind me. And it's been expertly modelled on a number of occasions by Kevin McCluskey at various grounds all over Europe.
Indeed, I can vouch for its quality. It's a high quality item that keeps you warm in the the cold of Budapest in the winter. So if it
We've
works
got an
here,
all
it'll work in Glasgow.
we've got an old shopping channel here on Acsom.
Let's get UVC sales pitch for the night.
Absolutely. Magnet hopes that Kyogo gets a goal to show the Japanese manager what mistake he's made. Let's have a wee chat about that then, because obviously that was one of the big talking points on a previous Acsom bulletin this week. And I was thinking about it in a number of different ways. I was thinking, right, how does it affect the players individually, Hatate and Kyogo? Obviously, you've got to look at how it affects Maeda to be picked, and obviously to have that to look forward to play on the world stage as well. What does it say about the quality of the Japanese squads? Does it benefit Celtic, the fact that two of our first team players are not travelling to the World Cup? What kind of benefits, what's the pros and cons in your mind, Kevin, of the two players being omitted from the Japanese squad for the World Cup?
Yeah, see, I do. I look at this as a very selfish point of view and think it's great news for us because it's two of our key players that are not going to be involved in the World Cup. They're going to get that extra month off. It's something which they didn't get this time last season when they were just finishing the Japanese season, or certainly in Hatate's case, anyway, finishing the Japanese season and moving out straight away, straight into the action with us. So I think, kind of selfishly, it's a good thing for us. They'll be fitter, fresher, stronger come the second half of the season. We can only benefit from it. But from the players' point of view, I mean, so first of all, I think from the Japanese squad side, they must have a very, very good squad if they can afford to leave players like Kyogo and Hatate out, because I imagine they would walk into most squads that are going to that World Cup out with maybe your top 5 or 6, the very, very good players. You'd have them as a squad player at least in most of the squads there. So I'm very surprised that they're not there. Mentally for the players, it might be a bit damaging in a sense, because I imagine, again, they'll have been building themselves up to go and play at a World Cup finals. It's the pinnacle of their career. For Kyogo especially, he's maybe got one more World Cup realistically that he could aim for.
Unless he does a Nakamura.
Unless he does a Nakamura, or it was a Kazimura, the boy that played till he was 55 or something like that. So maybe this Japanese longevity thing will kick in and he'll make it in 3 World Cups time. Who knows? But yeah, it's bound to be a bit of a kick in the teeth for him, for want of another expression. But they've got to go out then and be like, I'm a professional footballer, I want to prove the manager wrong.
Correct.
And what better stage and they will labour on it at times than going out into the Bernabeu, the biggest football stadium in kind of world football, most famous, whatever, and scoring a goal. And it doesn't matter if it's not a winning goal or if it's a consolation goal. For him to have that is an immediate 2 fingers up to the manager and telling him that he's made the wrong choice by leaving him out.
100%.
And Hatate's another player that can go there and try and boss a midfield against Toni Kroos, Valverde, Luka Modric. If he can put in a performance that's near their kind of level, then again, that just shows either Japan's got immense quality in the midfield or the manager's made a mistake.
Yeah, and you know the thing, we're playing a team of supreme quality. They've won 5 Champions Leagues in the last 10 years. Undoubtedly the most successful football club in world football. I'd love anyone to come in and suggest otherwise. I mean, who would, right?
Yes.
So if you score...
You can't argue against that start. You just can't.
If you score against this team tonight at the Bernabeu, that footage, those moments will reverberate around European and global football, right? So you're spot on. But I was looking at the squad that was picked, Kevin, and I know I'm not saying this is specifically for the fixtures, but there are 10 players in the squad who are either playing their football in Germany or in Spain, which is obviously 2 of the fixtures that Japan have as well. You're then looking at the fact that I don't think it's turning your nose up at Scottish football. Otherwise, Maeda wouldn't be one of only 3 strikers, selected for the Japan squad. So I don't think that's an issue. There was comments around the fitness aspect as well, and playing within the conditions. Not quite sure how you come to that conclusion with Kyogo, certainly. One of the fittest players I've ever seen in a Celtic jersey. But you're looking at Maeda and you think, if any of the 3 players needed a boost out of that announcement, it was probably Maeda. I know Kyogo's form has dipped a wee bit, Kevin. But so I'm trying to take the positive, and I'm thinking, well, Maeda, I'll get a boost from that. I also go back to the point that's been made time and time again by Liam Carrigan, our friend who appears from Celtic Down Under on a regular basis. And he's a massive fan of Maeda, to the point where he rates him more highly than Kyogo. And I don't at this moment in time, but I'm basing it on what I've seen in terms of the Celtic performances. Liam has watched both players for several seasons before they've come to Scotland. So again, is that the perception in Japan that Maeda is the star player of the exports to Scotland? It sounds as though it could be. Then you start looking at the squad, the strength of that squad, if you can afford to leave out a player like Kyogo, a player like Hatate. And I know that our centre-half target isn't in the squad, but I'm talking about the strength and the quality of Japanese footballers. We've seen that with at least 3 of our players. And Yukai Kobayashi has been linked. Some reports would suggest that it's a done deal, centre-half in January. Again, quite an inexpensive signing, Kevin. So if the squad and the standard of Japanese football is such that, you know, we can bring players in from that league and probably be more confident this time round than we were when we signed Kyogo, because that was our naivety or snobbery that, you know, we're buying from a substandard league. How wrong were we? How long was anybody that thought that? So I'm trying to take as many positives from that as possible. And I think that when you look at the performances of Hatate in Europe this season, I think we've seen 2 sides of him. We've seen some particularly good performances. You know, the game against Real Madrid was one of his best at Celtic Park. And we've seen a few where he's not quite been on it, on his game. And you think tonight, as you said, what better way to go out and prove the gaffer wrong by going out and putting in a man of the match performance. So Hatate, Maeda and Kyogo all start for Celtic tonight. But what it does mean is it means players like Giakoumakis, Haksabanovic and Jota are sitting on the bench. Were you surprised at any of those? Was it too early for Jota? Haksabanovic has played recently. Were you surprised he was maybe left out?
Giakoumakis is the one that surprises me more, because I think when he came on, in every game he's played so far in the Champions League, he's been that different option that's, you know, he's a forward that puts himself about and he causes mischief. And I think he's on good form at the moment. It's a bit unfair, perhaps, to take him out of the team. I think he's actually deserving of a run in the team. Like 5-6 games has been the number one striker, just to see what he does, because his goals to game, his goals per minute ratio for us is phenomenal. And he'd got the Champions League goal last time out as well. So he's proven himself now, and it doesn't matter if he doesn't score another Champions League goal, he doesn't have it on his CV. He's a Champions League goal scorer. And he's got the chance to go out and do it again tonight, or would have if I was picking the team, put it that way. So I was more surprised at him. I get there's been a few comments to see maybe coming in, a bit surprised about Abada and Maeda both starting. Yeah, that is one, because they don't seem to complement each other. Or although they play in the flanks, they don't seem to both have a good game at the same time. You know, it's one or the other. So again, that might be something, but you've got to go back and think, Ange knows what he's doing. He's given Abada the chance maybe to go out and right or wrong from the first game. I think Maeda plays most weeks when he's fit, because he really fits the Ange system, and probably that's why he's gone with Japan, because he suits the Japanese system better than Kyogo, perhaps. They might only want to play with that one centre forward, and they've got 2 that they think are better than Kyogo, and Maeda is the third that does the donkey work, does all the hard work. Which is why I would play him every week, because he unsettles defences with the high pressing. So yeah, I think maybe the forward line you could ask a few questions, but you know, it almost doesn't matter who we play up front against Real Madrid in this game. They're going to, whoever it is going to have to work the socks off whenever they get the chance. They're going to have to be more clinical than they have been in the other games. And if it's not working, it's really not a hardship from a Celtic point of view, in a way, to look at it and go, you've got Giakoumakis, Haksabanovic, James Forrest that could all come on and potentially do something and change the forward line. So, you know, it's a squad game. He's probably got an eye on the weekend as well, and he's got an eye on looking at, this is it, the team for the first hour, and we'll change it around for the final 30. And let's just not hope for the best, but let's hope the plan, whatever the plan is, works. And that 2-1 that I'm predicting is 2-1 for Celtic and not the other way around.
Oh, I would love it. I would absolutely love it. James, Kerr, strong Real team tonight, but fingers crossed a good performance from the boys. It gives a couple of goals to cheer about. Well, you know what? We'll run through the teams
It's all we
before
ask.
that is all we ask. We'll run through the teams, Kevin, before we get on to any of the other points that have been made. Some excellent points coming in from the viewers. And this is the Celtic team first. If you haven't already seen it, Hart and goals. Captains aside, in the absence of McGregor and Carter Vickers, you've got Juranovic on the right-hand side of defence. Still interest in him, apparently. There will be further interest in him come the January transfer window, according to Stephen McGowan, who is a good source of Celtic information. Left-back Taylor, I called him earlier this week, the most improved player under Ange Postecoglou. He starts in the Bernabeu. Superb. You've got Jens and Starfelt. There's a few comments coming in talking about the fact Starfelt will be playing in his natural position, right side of defence. So hopefully he will put in a commanding performance. A few others are concerned that he's getting thrown in, but I would need to ask, what is your options at that stage? I can see Welsh is on the bench. Would you rather Welsh came in rather than Starfelt? The other option, I think, might have been Abelgard, who I think can play centre-half, but it's not his preferred. It would be a bit of a near beat-on scenario there. Matt O'Reilly, Hatate and Moy making up the central three, with Abada, Maeda and Kyogo up top. I love it sometimes when players have got something to prove, and I look in that particular lineup and there's a few players, short and long term. Hart, I think Joe Hart has got something to prove and is continuing to prove people wrong by playing at this level. You've got people like Taylor, who had probably had a lot to prove to some Celtic fans over a period of time. And then you have players like Moy, who was written off when he came to Celtic. He's got a bit to prove. Hatate and Kyogo have got a lot to prove to the Japanese manager. And as you say, Abada and Maeda might have a lot to prove for a couple of chances they missed earlier in this campaign, Kevin. So, you know, it can motivate players that if they do have something to prove and they need to go out there and, as you said earlier on, flick the two fingers up at someone. John Sweeney, Starfelt not played in months. What could go wrong? We really need to bolster the defensive positions in January. It looks as though we're already doing that. Do you have any concerns about throwing him in? I mean, it's some test, isn't it?
Listen, it is. It's a massive test for him. I'd obviously prefer it to be Carter Vickers that's going out in this game. But if Starfelt's fit enough to play, then, you know, as long as he's match fit, I have less doubts about him. And he's playing in his favoured side as well, on the right-hand side, which should calm him down a bit, should make him a bit more steady. We know, actually, that he's a very comfortable and good defender anyway. He had a rocky first month or so when he joined, but since then, he developed the partnership with Carter Vickers. It became kind of a rock at the back, the two of them. Mm-hmm. So, you know, your only doubt with him coming back, and not only doubt for me, is whether he's fit enough. And he's going to be up against, you know, the likes of, we've got here, Asensio, Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr. There's a lot of pace about that front line from them. So that's your concern. And it's no disrespect to Stephen Welsh, but I'd rather have Starfelt in than Stephen Welsh for this game. I think he's got more experience of having played either in European football or on the continent, which will be massive for a game like this. Welsh is still a young lad, he's learning his trade. I feel like this is maybe a game too soon for him to be throwing him in and putting the pressure on him. So for me, Starfelt's the right choice, and Jens has been pretty solid this season as well. So again, I don't have too many worries at the moment. I just know that they're up against three of the best strikers in the world. So, you know, they're going to have a tough game. Whoever's at the back for us is going to have a tough game. But if they stick to their tasks, as they did at Celtic Park for the first 55 minutes, then you just never know. You never know. If we have a lucky night.
We've been saying it all season, you and I, Kevin. And you know what?
We're due one, Paul.
Tonight's the night. We're due a result in the Bernabeu. I've been saying it 42 years we've been due a result. John, the van driving legend. Hi, fellow Fifer. Here, Mon the Hoops. I hope you enjoy the game. Big Celtic contingent in Fife. Some rich history between Celtic and Fife as well. I'm pretty sure you'll be aware of. Nihilist Jack, Maeda tracking back, probably best option to begin the match. At least Hacksaw, an impact sub, 60 minutes along with probably 4 others. Well, I think he does have it in him to make an impact, Haksabanovic. I have been impressed. He's spoken about not being quite there yet, Kevin. He still looks upon himself as a bit of a new player. He's still trying to find his feet. He's not as fit as he would like to be, but I do think he's got something about him. He's shown enough, and if you put him into a game like this, who knows, it could be a game that's tailor-made for him. Listen, we're about to kick off. We'll be back at half-time. Kevin and I are ever the optimists. We are looking for at least a draw by half-time. Come and join us on A Celtic State of Mind. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. Thank you, Kevin McCluskey, for joining us all the way from Budapest on A Celtic State of Mind.